I know what they've told you. You, a wilted flower, past its bloom. Your ovaries, a wasted graveyard, shriveled like a prune. You doomed, baby girl. Cue in the tumbleweeds. The divorced, childless, with six kids, older sleaze, widowy. Accusing me of not only being too picky, but not smart enough. Not a good planner. A fashla of a huntress. Excuse me, that I'm not selling my dignity for a status of wifey. Sell myself short putting on the act of the modestly shy, always staring into her lap, speaking softly. Covering my knowledge like the sticking out parts of my hair with a scarf, but I gotta look like a painted China doll, at least till I'm sure he's in the bag, but after the wedding, look like me. Without kuhl in her eyes, kinky hair, uneven skin-toned me. And I wonder, after all the schemes, drawn-out projections and diagrams, bent words and meanings of how you'll catch that man, knowing him for a month, and then you got your wedding, in your fairy dress and tiara and all those tiab, golden dilka, you snapping on that gum, your golden bracelets playing against your black henna, get preggo on the first second of your honeymoon, and it's like, I don't have time to get to know you. Because I gotta do some dukhan, and then there's this azuma, and later on a bika. Right afterwards, gotta run to the kofer and get hinna so I can go to that wedding. Afterwards, coming home, and before I sleep, I look at you and realize I don't even know you. All the while wondering, what is my ex up to? But what no one cares to realize is that this baira is content. Call it my time off for inner outer self-reflection, a chance to get to know me so that if you ask me, I can comfortably tell you I have no clue who the hell I am. And the more I see, the less I know that this world is so vast and we are such tiny, insignificant pricks on this wall of providence. But I've never felt so less alone. And when the time comes, I plan to be outrun, outcharmed, outchased, outgunned, outsmarted, and wooed and adored, desired, ravished till I willingly submit, all the while being me. Glasses wearing, side braid, scarfless, imperfect, loud laughing, blunt talking, stare you straight in the eye, firm handshake with nothing less but mascara, me. Get this out of the way. Okay, so English is not my first language. I actually learned English in a very unorthodox way. I remember at the age of 8 years old, I was in a classroom full of strange faces, and the teacher looking at me, speaking quite loudly, asking me, "What is your name?" And of course, the funny thing is I knew what she was saying, but I could only reply back to her in Arabic. So I responded, I was like, "Ana ismi Najla." And then she'd ask again, and it'll go back and forth, until finally she decided and said, "You know what? We are going to call you Lisa." And that was my name. They called me Lisa for a year. And since the school was so small, they didn't really have a proper English program, so they put me in a special ed class. And but by the end of that year, not only was I the best in reading and writing in English in the special ed class, but also in the whole third of grade. So I remember going up to my crayon box because it had my name Lisa on there, and I tore off that thing, and I proudly stood and I said, "My name is Najla." Yes. But two of the main things why I was able to so quickly adapt and become such a good speaker is two main things, and it's mostly due to my father, Aboui. Number one, he got me into the habit of writing in a journal. one of the first things that he did when we moved to the States was he bought me a journal, and he said, because imagine I'm 8 years old, I'm coming from Saudi, I'm in culture shock, I don't know the language, and he told me to write every day, even if it's a sentence or a paragraph, but just to write. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking, write. That was one thing, and I still continue to do that. The second thing is reading. He got me to read as much as possible. You name it, from Little Women to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Black Beauty, King Solomon's Mines, you name it, I read it. And growing up in the States, of course, there was going through the stage of identity crisis. Being raised by two Sudanese parents, they were trying to make me love a country that I'd never been born to and never lived in, which is Sudan. And one of the most glaring examples of this thing is the car ride. We would have the cassette tapes, stick it in, and it would be Wardi, Tarbas, Al-Kashif, Al-Balabil, whomever. And I remember sitting in the back seat feeling so embarrassed, having to listen to this, and I'd be like telling Abu, please turn it down, my friends might be outside. What are these people saying? I don't know, I don't care. And I'd take out my Walkman. We didn't have iPods back then. So I'd have my CD, and I'd clean it, and I'd stick it in there angrily, and I'd put on my headphones, and I'm just like, oh, it's so embarrassing. Don't know what they're saying. And so that struggle, that identity struggle, was most prevalent at home with Ummi. Now, Ummi is, as I saw, a typical Sudanese housewife. Yani just endless cooking, endless nadafa, endless mutbakh, endless, and the endless nigga and nigga and nigga. Yeah? But all the time, she'd be nagging, انتي ما عندك مزاج في النظافة وده شنو ده وابوك يخسرك كتب وكلام منو حيزوجك في النهاية. And honestly, I didn't really understand that part of the world because I was just being busy a tomboy. I was riding bikes, climbing trees, being in every sport that I could possibly be in. And if I wasn't moving, my head was stuck in a book. And so my shoot, I just had a blackout. But that struggle, that identity struggle, just as I was unable to comprehend those cassette tapes that were being played in the car, I couldn't identify with that part of the world with my mother. And just as I had felt out of place, being in two worlds but not fitting in either one of them, I did what my father had advised me when I was 8 years old, and that was to write. And I did. I tried to write. It was not just journal writing, but it was also fiction writing. But one of the things that I noticed was that I was trying to mimic those same writers that I was reading, Western writers. And I felt it wasn't authentic. It wasn't truly saying what I was feeling. And it wasn't until I came across a website by the name of shamarat.net. Shamarat.net. And there I was introduced to some of the most talented, gifted Sudanese writers and poets. And I was just astonished at how they were able to link their Sudanese heritage into these poems and stories. And it was actually there that I took on the username of NubianQ. Yeah. So from NubianQ, I posted from my first story, and then later on poetry, and then I continued writing. I had gotten nothing but absolute support and feedback from the Shamarat family. And it was because of them that I was nurtured as a writer. I grew as a writer. And one of the fascinating things that I noticed was the comments of my writings in the forum. I had two distinct camps. There was a camp mostly of guys. They accused me of being a man-hating feminist. And then the second camp was mostly ladies, and they thanked me. They said, thank you so much. I was able to relate to that. I can't believe you were able to put into words what I'm feeling and what I'm going through. And I found that so fascinating. So I decided to go over and reread my writings. And I noticed that I had a couple of things that kept on popping up over and over again. But one of the biggest themes that I tend to write about is that the role of the Sudanese woman and her place in society. What is expected of her and what she wants and aspires to. And one of the characters that I often repeat in my stories is that of the Sudanese housewife, which is linked loosely somewhat of not only my mother, but the countless other Sudanese housewives that I have come across in my lifetime. And one of the basic traits that links all of them is that of the voiceless woman stuck in an unfulfilling and meaningless role. And I realized just how stereotypical that view was until I started remembering when I would read books and how I took the time to dissect and analyze each fictional character, trying to look beyond their traits. Even in my fictional characters that I wrote, how I took the time to layer them so that you as readers can see beyond the typical traits. So I decided to look at the beyond of and women like her. Now, I used to think that the only thing similar to and I is that we look alike. And that's actually my mom and that's my dad. This is in 1964. And I realized the amount of passion, dedication that she puts not only in النظافة والمطبخ والبيت and all in everything that she does is just as I do with my writing. The قوة راس in wanting perfection in everything that we do so we can show the best of it, the best in it, is just the same as her and I. And it was because of my writing I was able to come to that realization. Because of writing, I was able to see how the term housewife does no justice to the depth and complexity and beauty and awesomeness of women like Ummi. Because of writing, I feel in place when out of place. Writing gives me the voice to speak out and make sense. That's where I'm supposed to get She had been so accustomed to her skin, but days came where it felt as if after peeling it and rubbing it raw, it wasn't enough. She was to be bound, gagged, and classified to the standard. And worse, she was cloaked with a thickening naivety of a Sudan that was never hers, of a people that in the past were of a pure state of mind, of a transparent heart now clouded and barely pounding. And the day came when the veil slipped from her eyes to see an already warped conception of who she supposedly was. The in-between chick. In-between, outspoken and soundless. Feminine and أرجل من اللازم. Fair and lovely to السمار unattractive. معصعصة to شحم in all the right places. Somewhere in between خواجية and بنت البلد. Intelligent, successful and full of promise to دي شايفة نفسها أكتر من اللازم. Halo, divine, hijabi, and fitna causing Sa'dawi. Singly happy to mindless marriage crazed zombie. You're stuck between sushi and fasikh. Ferocious roar and timid squeak. Sincere amateur and cunning seductress. Subtle attractiveness and vulgar beauty. Knowing being yourself and rabid compromising. You are stuck. Stuck between the in-betweens. The past and present. And a deen and what society deems. Right and wrong. Left and right. You and them, and you and you. Stuck in between. So I say, dear sister, never question your frustration, for I am just like you. Do not be ashamed of those tears, for I cried them just like you. Never mind their need to categorize, for you are complete. Never mind the raging hypocrites, the soulless twits, big-mouthed khalat, or smooth-faced inane men. Never question your significance. Never question your goodness. Be only you, and absolutely nothing but you. That is uniquely, unprecedentedly, awesomely, devastatingly, rightly you.